Hey everyone, it's Heather. Welcome back to our mini-sode, session 3, continuing with our introduction to conscious discipline, and finishing up our brain states. I mean, really, the brain states are never finished. Everything we do matters what brain state we're in. So we'll talk about it a lot, but this is the last of our introduction, and we're going to dive into the executive state today. So, what is conscious discipline? It's social emotional learning, it's trauma informed, it's research based. So, trauma is a word that I feel like, especially in education, in any support services, we've been hearing about trauma for a couple years now. Everybody's getting a little more wise to the myriad of ways that trauma can happen, um, what it means to have trauma when you're young, and what it can do to you. So we hear that a lot, but until conscious discipline, I never heard anybody say what to do about it. So it is important that we all start to understand all of the different ways that trauma affects us. And it's more important that we learn what to do, what we can do to help. And for me, for everybody, right? For you, that's where conscious discipline comes in. Conscious discipline empowers us to be conscious, right? Conscious of our brain, of our body, about what's going on inside. And when we are conscious of that, we start to pull on this knowledge that we're learning in these mini episodes, in the conversations that we've been having, maybe in some more research you've been doing on your own about conscious discipline. And once we pull on that knowledge, it tells us what to do next, which is really, really important. It's great to know that we need to start paying attention to trauma, but we need to know what to do. And this is it, right? This is where it tells us. We're not going to necessarily talk about that today, but it's a great reason to keep sticking with this. Okay, so let's disengage our stress with 3 deep breaths together. So, drain is a breath that you can certainly do right now, or do it with children. You extend your arms out and tighten your fists and your shoulders and your face. Make everything nice and tight. Breathe in, and then on your exhale, you just right, open the hands. Let all of that drain out. As you let the air drain out, you let the tension drain out too. So let's take another deep breath in together, breathing in, push the belly out, fill up, and then slowly exhale. And then do that one more time. Breathe in nice and deep, push the belly out, breathe with your body, and then slowly let that exhale out. It's no secret that breathing is good for us, and we talk about it a lot in conscious discipline. Pretty early on in my journey with conscious discipline, I learned about these taking 3 breaths and how it can shut down your fight or flight response, right? So taking a nice slow breath in and then letting the exhale last even longer. I had something crazy happen to me in a workout class one time where my fight, fight was coursing through my body. And it was a great opportunity to practice something I had just learned. And I was shocked at how well it worked. And ever since then, I use it all the time, almost daily, right? So 3 big breaths, it can do a lot. This is a safe space. You can ask questions. I've had some really great conversations with some of you after these sessions are put out. There's no judgment, not from me. And I hope that more and more there's less judgment from you about yourself, right? When we start learning this stuff, it's really difficult to look back at situations that you have had with your own children, or with people that you care about, kids in your program. I have worked in early childhood education for I don't more than half of my life, and for many many years I was a director in a center. And the more I learn in conscious discipline, the more I reflect back about what I could have done so different with kids that were struggling in my program, in relationships that I've had with staff, with friends, with it never stops. The point in all that is you need to observe your past and remind yourself that you were doing the best that you could. You were working with the information and the training that you had. And only when you learn better can you do better. And that's where this stuff starts to come on. And by the way, it's I'm certain that there isn't a conscious discipline master instructor or a certified instructor or anyone else that's been practicing this for years that would tell you that once you learn it, you're just always breathing and always in your executive state. Conscious discipline is teaching us to be conscious enough to realize when we're off track, and then disciplined enough to get back on track. That's conscious discipline. Okay, so let's make some eye contact. We've been watching a lot of Pinky Malinky around here these days. If you have a real person in your house, pause this, go find them, get a little eye contact, and get some joy juice. Your brain needs it, right? So here's what we know. We are stressed. Our kids are stressed. None of us are, unfortunately, immune to stress. Research shows us that we can only learn when we are physically and emotionally safe. And a reminder that that's not a decision we make for someone else. I think that my child is physically and emotionally safe 100% of the time. But what's really important is whether he feels physically and emotionally safe, right? So it's not a judgment. It's not a decision that we make for other people. It's important that they feel physically and emotionally safe so they can learn. We are the safekeepers of the kids and the adults that we care about or care for. This brain state model, we've tackled the survival state, we've tackled the emotional state. This brain state model and the understanding is how we learn to draw on the knowledge. So right now we're just building knowledge. We're not to the point where we're talking about a ton of skills yet for each state, but just having the knowledge to recognize what state you're in is how we find that next step, right? That's what's so important. And in order to learn, we need to be brain smart. So that's what we did. We're doing that right now. We are uniting here together for the same purpose. We took some breaths together to disengage our stress response. We made some eye contact, hopefully with a real person, and got some joy juice. And I've committed to keep it safe. So if you're ready to make a commitment to also maybe keep it safe, or just doing your best to have an open mind so that you can learn something new. We just talked about how hard it can be to reflect on things that you've done in the past. Sometimes being in that vulnerable state can, our defenses start to come up, right? And we start to feel like it seems like someone's telling me that I'm doing something wrong, that I've been doing something wrong, and that might kick in that defense mechanism to just shut down. So committing to just doing your best to have an open mind so that you can learn something new that's it. And if you oops and it doesn't work so well, that's okay. Just come back to it when you're ready. Way more information about conscious discipline, and there's 100 places you can get it. This website is incredible. It has always had a ton of resources, and now it has even more. Right now, with everything that's happening in our world, with quarantine and things being shut down, there are more resources for home than there has ever been. They're incredible. If you like podcasts, there is a podcast called Real Talk for Real Teachers by Dr. Becky Bailey. That is great. It's not just for teachers. You'll most definitely get something out of it, even if you're not a teacher. And the Facebook page always has a lot of information, but again, right now, man, there is a ton of stuff on there for home. So it's a great place to go. Last time we covered the emotional state. It's the state just above survival, right? Survival says, am I safe? And yes, survival says, am I safe? But this one, the emotional state says, am I loved? It needs a calm connection. And it looks like the things that probably trigger us the most: yelling and blaming and back talk, name calling. When a child needs us or another adult needs us, right? And remember that when I say child, I'm talking like toddler, infant toddler, all the way through like someone in their early 20s, while their brain is still developing and they're still practicing all of those, learning all of those executive skills. You know, I'm 43 and my brain has been developed for a super long time, and I still I'm still developing these skills. So when we think about kids, um, man, we got to cut them some slack, right? So when we're in our survival or emotional state and the other person is saying, am I loved? And is looking for connection, if we're in our survival or emotional state, we don't have anything helpful to offer them. This is where the threats and the hurt come. This is where the blame and the abandonment comes. You know, even on our best days, when we're in this state, we don't have the skills to help anybody else, and we don't have the skills to ask for help for somebody else. To really be able to recognize that you need help and to ask for help and accept help, you also need to be in a higher state, right? So this is no place to be, no place to survive. We do understand that in our survival state, um, it keeps us alive, right? We can problem solve in our executive state. So I may be able to, you know, think it through whether I should swerve right or swerve left if an animal runs out in front of my car, but that's not going to keep me alive. For me to be safe, I need my survival state to kick in and decide where I need to swerve to do its best to keep me safe, right? So we need it. We just don't want to stay there. So in the lower brain states where I'm saying, am I safe? I need connection. What they need from us is they need our help. And we can't help them if we're not in the higher centers of our brain, right? So they need us to be patient. They need us to download their calm. They need us to notice and acknowledge their struggle. And we do that by reclaiming our power and actively calming ourselves. So, reclaiming your power is making that decision that nobody is in charge of me but me. So, nobody gets to make me angry. Nobody gets to make me sad. Nobody gets to make me feel powerless. I have the ability to make that decision. It's hard sometimes, but it's a practice. It's all a practice, right? So we work on actively calming ourselves. We're always modeling the behavior we want the other person to possess, not just for kids, but for adults too, right? Think of how many times we yell at kids because they're being too loud. You know, think of all of the tools we have in our toolkit to get people to do what we want. Rarely are they calm and the way we would want them to handle things, right? So we're a model. We're always modeling, practicing and modeling. And part of modeling and practicing is admitting when you have slipped up, when you've had an oops, and apologizing. That's difficult to do. And the more you apologize to your kids, to your teenager, to your coworkers, to your partners, the more you do that, the easier it will be for them to start doing that with you. It's not an easy skill. It's not something that comes naturally to most of us, because it's not what was done to me anyway when I was growing up. So Q-tip, I remind myself to quit taking it personally, right? This is not happening to me, it's happening in front of me. And I will tell you that I use that more with adults in my head than I do with kids. I often need to remind myself with another grown person's behavior that this isn't about me. It's happening in front of me. This isn't happening to me. This isn't about me, right? And I breathe. I can handle this. So brain states. We have checked off the survival state. We have checked off the emotional state. And let's talk about the executive state. The executive state is where we can do all the wonderful things. We can problem solve. We can learn. We can change behavior. We can make wise choices. Right? And so when we get other people to their executive state, that's where they can problem solve and they can learn and they can change behavior and make wise choices. The executive state attunes us to the feelings and experiences of others. We are free from past conditioning. All those things, those auto responses that we have, it helps us manage this without using those things that we're conditioned to do, because we can respond instead of react, right? When something happens and we react, we don't give ourselves the moment that we need to really think about what we're going to say and do. But in the executive state, it allows us to pause. We take that breath so that we can respond consciously, thinking about the best way to handle it, right? We remind ourselves we've got the answer all along. Sometimes we just need to slow down and take a breath and think about it. The executive state asks one question: what can I learn? So in the executive state, we can problem solve. We have access to our wisdom and our experiences. We have unlimited skills, right? All of these skills that we've learned, all these new skills and tools we've put into our grown-up toolkit, we can access them and we can learn, right? And when you put two people in the executive state together, it's a beautiful thing. And I should add, it can look like this, right? These two happy people, this mom and her teenager together, because they're both in their executive state. But being in your executive state doesn't mean you're giggly happy and everything is fine. You can still be unhappy, but if you're unhappy and in your executive state, taking some breaths and giving yourself a moment, you'll be able to think about what your next steps are, right? Instead of staying or slipping down into that emotional state. So in the emotional state, the other person can learn and problem solve, and they can listen to reason, right? Even in the executive state, nobody wants to listen to your lectures. Okay, so they can't listen to it in survival or emotional state. They might be able to bear with it in your executive state, but uh, save the lecture and we can think of some better things to do instead, like offer solutions instead of lecture, right? Because typically when we're lecturing, what we're trying to do is shame, and nobody learns from feeling bad. Well, some people do learn by feeling bad, by making them feel bad, right? But that's not what we want. Downloading calm, offering solutions, comforting and ensuring safety, staying quiet and breathing. Sometimes that's hard to just stay quiet when someone else is upset. It's really uncomfortable. And so it is our thought process gets us to end it quickly, right? Sometimes we just need to stay quiet and breathe and download our calm and just be there. When we're in this state, we have something to offer to make someone feel loved and safe. So in our executive state, when this other person is saying, am I loved? Am I safe? Connect with me. Here's what we have to offer. I got this, right? I've got you. I'm here. Breathe with me. I'm your safekeeper. We got this. We can figure this out. We can figure it out together. So the bottom line is, and always will be, that we cannot help the other person if we are not in the higher centers of our brain. A child cannot be in a higher state than their caregiver. So when they are upset and screaming, and then you get upset and start screaming back, they're not going to calm down until you calm down. They can't be in a higher state than you. It's not that easy as an adult either, right? I think we've talked about this before when another person walks into the room that's mad or sad or just in a bad mood. It's really hard to stay up and positive when someone else is down, right? So we rely on these powers, and there is lots to learn, and I can't wait to get into talking about the powers and the skills. But right now, we're just literally going to name two, and it's the power of perception and the power of love. We remember that nobody can make me angry without my permission, and I can choose to see the best in others. Modeling the behavior that we want the others to possess. We calm ourselves. We Q-tip. We download calm. We notice what's happening. We use our skills to bring them from their survival or emotional state to the executive state. Love and compassion. Because how we handle situations becomes a blueprint for all relationships and how they manage stress for the rest of their lives. This is an important slide right here. How we handle situations becomes a blueprint for all relationships and how they manage stress for the rest of our lives. Even if they hate how we're handling it, we're teaching them that's exactly the way to get things done. I know people that grew up as parents as yellers, like bad yelling. Okay, that was the parents' only skill, was to yell loudly and threaten often. And getting older and seeing these people turn into parents on their own, it's exactly what they do to their kids because they don't have any other skills. No one ever showed them something. Just because they didn't like being yelled at when they were young didn't give them automatically a different skill to handle their own children in relationships. You have to make a decision about how you want your child to be able to handle things when they get older, and how you want your teenager to handle things when they get older, and how you want your 20-year-old child or coworker to handle things when they get older. We're never too old to have a conversation and to learn better, right? But when we were talking about children, it's so important to remember that how we handle these situations becomes a blueprint for all of their relationships and how they manage their stress for the rest of their lives. That blows my mind. So this is usually a part where we roll our eyes, right? Because I need to stay calm while my kid throws things or screams or runs away. Hopefully by now we're starting to catch on here that what it's really about is this. Oh, so they hide, they yell, they scream. I'm going to keep breathing and downloading my calm. I'm going to help them get to their executive state so that they can learn a better way, right? We start where they are so we can teach them a better way. We get ourselves to the executive state so they can hear us. The power of perception and love gives us access to the higher centers of our brain so that we could be their safe place. Because if they're screaming at us and we ignore it, yeah, they might stop, but we're not teaching them a better way to communicate. If they scream at us and we scream back and we say that we're allowed to scream because we're an adult and you're not because you're a kid, then they don't learn anything. They don't learn a better way. They only learn a better way when we model it. We wait till they're in their executive state and in a place to learn, and we show it to them. We remember that unwanted behaviors are connection-seeking behaviors. Everyone wants love and acceptance. Everyone. So my state dictates your state, right? In every interaction you have, moving forward, when you walk away from this video, remember that my state dictates your state. So when someone is in front of you, getting a little hyped up, right, dropping into the lower centers of their brain, check in with yourself first. What state am I in? And how can I get myself to a higher state than them so that I can help them? Connection is more than being together. There's a recipe for it. There's eye contact, touch, presence, and a playful situation. You mix them all together, and there you've got connection, right? It just has to be a couple minutes, just the two of you, adults and kids, no matter their age. It might look different with a 3-year-old than it does a 12-year-old. It might look different from a 12-year-old than it does your boss at work, but there are ways to get connection. We're going to talk about that later. But put your phone away. Don't look at the clock. Be silly, right? Time spent together, serious, is time well spent. But time spent in a playful situation where you're present and there's some playful touch is, well, it's connection. It does magic things. We need connection. Um, our brain needs it, right? It's how we connect to keep things going, keep our brains in the higher centers, and it's how we come back together when things go wrong, because that's hard. So what's next? What's next is connection. Our next mini session, we're going to talk about connection. We're going to talk a little more about these 4 ingredients, and we'll talk about some ways, some playful ways to get connected with your children, with older children, and with the people that you love. And I can't wait to do that. So until next time, I am wishing you well.